All right. Welcome to Love the Game 24/7 podcast with Coach Smith. I appreciate it. And you guys joining me for a little bit this evening. Now,
Are you ready?
are you guys ready for the show this evening? Well, I hope you are. Sorry I'm late, but when you have a regular job as well, like I do working at the university in financial aid, you don't always get to leave on time like you like to. So my apologies for being late at the show. Um, I like to normally start at 6:30 so I can get you guys on and off here. But welcome to the show. Thank you for joining me on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Um, Hope to have a little bit of good discussion. So yeah, if you got questions, be sure um, you know put them in the chat. Love to hear some of your questions. I'm going to put my other link in here for you guys to join the show via my link tree. Um, for you to be able to get to all of my social media platforms if you want to join the show this evening, and you're not sure how you want to join, but I will put the link out there, the link tree link out there for you to connect with, and you can get to everything with Love the Game 24/7 podcast with Coach Smith. Um, Looking forward to always giving some good advice, good guidance on the recruiting process for young athletes out there, for young boys and girls out there. Want to be sure that you are learning how to navigate through this recruiting process, right? Because it can be bittersweet, but I think more sweet than bitter for a lot of you out there if you just learn uh, the concepts and learn how to get your strategy, especially as we are winding down the academic year, school year, and it's going to be uh, summer camp time. As I've been sharing on my previous podcast. Are you scholarship ready? What are you doing to get yourself to be scholarship ready? That's very important for you to start learning that, and we need to get those things going at a young, early age in middle school, and not try not to wait until it's too late when you get in high school and you don't have a opportunity to really gain some huge momentum, because momentum, guys, are important. We got to stop playing around with this recruiting process and how you're going to go about things. Even if you do go to camps, you got to stop messing around in your preparation. You got to learn and know what it is exactly you're going to be doing. Some of you all have been going to some of these camps, and you should know by now what it is they're going to be looking for. And so, part of tonight's podcast or discussion is: Are you just a JAG? Are you just a JAG, or are you what they're looking for? And that's an acronym for: Are you just a guy, or are you just a girl, or are you what the schools out there looking for in your sport? Are you the real deal? That's part of this discussion tonight, and some of what we're going to discuss tonight. I mean, great segue with all the stuff that's going on with the transfer portal, and something I saw recently. They're trying to uh, highlight Deion Sanders at Colorado, University of Colorado. Um, but before I get on to that, let me just say this real quick. So be sure you subscribe to the channel on YouTube. You see that link in the bottom left corner. Be sure you hit that subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. You guys got to get going and joining. I know I get a lot of love out there with people liking the videos and sharing them sometimes, but I need you guys to help grow my viewership out there, and I appreciate it, because this is some crucial and vital information to help you young athletes to not have to deal with some of the things that could be avoided. There's some things you need to go through and deal with, but there's some things that you can avoid having to deal with, and a lot of it of why you don't avoid it is because you have a lack of knowledge. You have a lack of understanding. You have a lack of experience, or you have some people who know a little something, right, and that's cool. Um, and you or they don't know a whole lot, and you kind of learn a lot of this stuff new, or like I said, there are some people that do know a little something about the recruit. I'm not going to say but there's nobody out there that don't know it, but definitely there are a lot of people that don't. There are a lot of people who um, parents who didn't play college sports and maybe even high school sports, but maybe didn't, definitely maybe not have gone to college or for whatever reason, you know. Like I said, even there's some people who got highly recruited and they didn't go through the normal process of the recruiting process, and they don't really have a concept or understanding because they had the measurables. They were that, they were a man amongst boys, or a woman amongst girls, because of your measurables and your talent level, and you may have gone through the recruiting like real easy, and that's not normal for most or a lot of people. And also, you got some coaches out there that are good with helping their kids, but you got a lot of coaches out there that aren't, and a lot of people are relying on coaches to do some things, and it's not happening, right? So be sure you guys help grow Love the Game 24/7 podcast viewership and audience, so we can help as many young people as possible to alleviate some of the headache that some of you all are dealing with, that I know you're dealing with. Like I said, I've been through some of that myself, having a single mom um, raising me, and having to figure this stuff out on my own. So I know how it feels because I've been through it, and dealing with a difficult coach, right? And so be sure you subscribe. Be sure you follow me on Instagram, Coach Smith, or Love the Game 24_7 on IG. Be sure you also parents can follow me on Facebook, but I got the link tree in the chat. And so if you're listening to this message live, or if you're listening to it, the recording, just be sure you go to that link tree. If you're familiar with Linktree, you can go to Linktree and then just go to Love the Game 24_7, and be sure you follow there, and go to the all the social media platforms that I'm out there with, and follow Coach Smith, and let's get this information out here so we can help these young boys and girls get to college, and enjoy a great experience of playing college sports. And there's nothing like it. There's nothing like playing sports, period. I don't care what it is, but there's nothing like playing sports and being around some of your friends and whatnot. And also, you want to be somewhere where it's healthy, okay? And so that's a little bit of what we're going to talk about. But as I said, um, are you a Jag? Are you just a guy, or are you just a girl? Or are you that person that they're looking for? Are you that athlete that they're looking for, that they're ready to give a scholarship to? Are you maturing and working on the things that you need to work on to help you be not just a guy, or not just a girl, not being a JAG, right? That's that acronym, JAG. That's what it stands for. You don't want to be just somebody, right? We should never want to just be something mediocre. We always shoot for, greatness. Okay, always. I don't care who you are. You should always be shooting for being great at what you do, right? And how you approach um, getting yourself prepared and ready. Okay, and the one thing we got to do is not to overvalue yourselves. Let's not get caught up in that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just talking about somebody who just loves the game 24/7, who's going to put the work in, who's going to work hard to always, try to get better, learn the game better, understand the game better, understand why you're doing what you're doing, all those different things. That's what I'm talking about. Not overvaluing yourself because we got all this NIL stuff going on and the transfer portal going on. That's what I initially started talking about, where I want to, just say sometimes um, I believe sometimes there's some kids, and I've seen it where can be overrated. Can be overrated. And when I say overrated, I don't mean they're not athletically talented. They're talented. It's not that the kid is not talented, but they could be overrated with because their work ethic is not good. Some things come to some kids too easy, and they're not willing to put that work in, and they're a jag. And we got a lot of kids out there who, and you need some kids who are just a guy or just a girl. You know, of course you need them. Um, but because there's so many who want to just settle in being mediocre as opposed to being great, because being great takes some work, takes some effort, right? And so we got this issue coming up with the transfer portal thing that I don't kind of like so much about what I saw recently about the transfer portal. They're trying to, highlight what, because Deion Sanders has lost some kids to the transfer portal. And they're making a big deal out of it because of why? Because we know because it's Deion Sanders. Let's just tell the truth, right? And shame the devil. Okay. Media out there just trying to bring some negative, um, trying to bring something negative towards the Colorado program and what Deion Sanders is doing out there. But the thing that's so funny is that what is going on with Deion with possibly losing the cornerback, that the 5-star freshman cornerback that he had, um, um, that he even talked about like was late to meetings or missing meetings. And see, when you're great, or when you want to do some things that are great, you don't do stuff like that. I'm not going to say you're not going to make some mistakes. That's not what I'm saying. You're not going to, nobody's perfect. But when you got somebody like a Deion Sanders or Coach Tomlin or Harbaugh or Hurley, UConn basketball, when you have great coaches like that, Nick Saban, um, Bobby Bowden, Jimmy Johnson, you know, and even some other coaches. There's some coaches that maybe not have a big name, but they're great at what they do. They put a good product on the field because of inspiring some young men. And by no stretch of the imagination are they perfect, because that's not what we're talking about. But they demand greatness. They give you all the things that you need to help you be great, and you don't respond and do the things that you need to do to be great. And it just, I heard a lot of rumors about the young man that, I don't know if they're true. I know as a high school coach, had to deal with families and different things like that, and had to, talk to some people, and I'm thankful and blessed that, you know, um, in most cases, the family, different people would listen. Sometimes they all it was, got to talk to them more than once. But I know and understand, even coaching 12, 13 years in high school football, that when you're a coach, even just being an assistant coach, I wasn't even a head coach. So I couldn't even imagine some of the stuff I wouldn't want to have to deal with as a head coach. But even as an assistant coach and trying to help head off foolishness, right, from family, because the young man or young lady, especially, I'm gonna speak mainly from football, my football coaching, because I did coach track, but I didn't really have issues with families when it came to track. But with football, I did had the experience where you had to deal with families sometimes, and about why their kids not playing or this and that. And sometimes because I was easy to talk to, and I'm gonna bring it to you straight and tell you the truth. Um, people, felt like it was, I was somebody they could talk to, easy to talk to. And also I'm gonna tell them the truth. I'm not gonna lie and tell you, like, if kid not hustling, I don't care how talented you are. You can't always, your talent only gonna take you so far, right? So um you gotta have some integrity. And that goes both ways. But just this whole deal with the transfer portal and media trying to bring like some negative stuff towards Dion, like he's the only one experiencing this. I had this discussion last night on my On the Wood podcast with my brothers and several good friends that we've been doing this other podcast called On the Wood. We'll be releasing that pretty soon, because we talk about sports, politics, you name it. We talk about it all on the Wood podcast. Um, but tonight, um, from discussion we had last night about this, and one of my buddies, good buddies, he kind of brought up the topic and he did some research and wanted to be sure that he had, some strong evidence to back up his rebuttal on why media is doing why the media is doing some of the things that they're doing with Dion, and it's because, like, look, Alabama had just as many, if not more, guys who went into the transfer portal when Nick Saban left. There are other schools like Florida State. Excuse me, they're dealing with some transfer portals. All schools. They try to make it seem like Dion is dealing with this a little different than everybody else, but that's a lie. He's not dealing with it. He probably ain't dealing with it as much as some other schools. But for the most part, from my buddy looking at some of the statistics at other schools with kids, even top kids, some top kids going in the transfer portal, leaving, like I said, Alabama's, the Florida States, the Texas schools, you name it. Everybody's dealing with this. But when you look at the media and how they tried to put a little twist on it, it's sort of like, oh yeah, Dion is, he's possibly losing one of his top cornerbacks that may go into the transfer portal. There's a lot of news about this young man being, he was a 5-star. But like I said, sometimes some people can get overrated. And I'm just gonna be real and honest with you. And like I said, doesn't mean that young man is not talented. I'm not necessarily pointing the finger at him because I don't know. I haven't, I don't know the young man. I know my brother. I got another older brother that coaches in that area where he's from, where this young man played, and he said, yeah, he's a talented kid. Um, but sometimes, man, when people have to really get out there and have the ball, or really have to do what it needs to take to be sure that they play at a high level, everybody ain't always willing to do what it takes. Some of them are fooled because they've been told since they've been young that they're all this. But then when you get to college, you got to meet up with some people that are just as good, right? But may not be as good, but they're close by. But their work ethic is better than yours. Their commitment and integrity is better than yours. They aren't missing meetings. They understand and know what they're supposed to be doing when they get on the field. They're not asking a bunch of questions that could have been answered if you weren't late or missed a meeting. And then you got parents that want to come in and complain about why my kid such and such. Well, have you talked to your kid? Did you ask them and hold them accountable? Like, why did you ask your young man or young lady, why are you missing meetings? Why are you late? Now, the only way I can see that you might be late and you might have a legitimate excuse is because you're in class, and that's a legitimate reason. And then, but it also, you're required and you have access to let somebody know when you're gonna be late because of class or because you're studying something and you needed some more time. They're not gonna knock that. They're not gonna call you out about that. You probably late because you're moping and complaining because you aren't starting because you feel like, hey, I'm this 5-star. But when you get on that college campus, you're gonna realize everybody got some 5-star ability, whether they got that rating on them or not. You can't be fooled by all this hype out there that they give kids that they're 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star, all this and that. My son was a 3-star quarterback when he came out of high school. And I knew he was much better than a 3-star. But I didn't do all that. I didn't take him around to all that stuff to where he probably would have gotten much more highly rated or whatever. But he earned his scholarship, right? He got on the football field, you know, early as a freshman. But he'd always put work in, and I always made sure to let him know that, hey, just because I'm your dad and I'm coaching, you got to put your work in. And he never complained or said that, but I just made a point to make sure up front that he knew, right? So that it'll never come up as a parent. Whether I was coaching or not, I would just come at him like that, or any kid of mine, you know. Um, so sometimes, like I said, with this transfer portal stuff, you got a lot of immature kids, right? Maturity, do you know maturity, you know, just like I heard a message recently with my man Jamal Miller on my uh entrepreneur Bible study that I listened to, just trying to help encourage some of us uh Christian business people and starting out like I'm starting out with my podcast, and we talked about maturity and I took this, so I'm not gonna say it's mine, but it was a great word that Jamal Miller shared during our Bible study this afternoon. Where and I like, man, that's absolutely right. You know, I've known this, but I just like the way he put it today. I've kind of, have lived by this and try to teach and coach this. But like I said, maturity is, are you consistent in showing up? See, I'm trying to be consistent in my showing up and doing my podcast, right? And something that I know I'm very well versed in, that I have personal experience, life experience. I'm not coming at you all on this podcast with some theory kind of stuff that I think might work or that I think I know what's going on. No, I live this stuff personally, right? So maturity is, are you consistent in showing up, right? Doing what you know you need to do, right? That's what maturity is, right? Where's your focus, right? Keep your focus on yourself and what it is that you need to improve upon and not what worrying about somebody else. Now, if you're concerned about somebody else because you can have that genuine, like, hey, I know I got my brother's back, I got my sister's back, or whatever the case may be. That's different. That's not what I'm talking about. When you constantly worrying about somebody and talking about what somebody else is not doing and trying to bring some light on about what you're doing, that's not maturity. Like I said, maturity is, are you consistent in showing up, doing what you know you need to work on, right? And where's your focus, right? Knowing where your focus is. That's what maturity is. And keep your focus on yourself and what it is you need to improve upon. That's what mature athlete, or mature anybody, but definitely mature athlete. And some of you kids, because of what you've gotten since you were young, with all this rating and all these things, and I think it's great, right? I don't, I'm not knocking it, but as a parent, I'm gonna get on some of you parents about that. This is where you got to come in at and keep some level heads, right? And it can't always be the coach fault, right? And you all know, y'all heard some of my podcasts because I've had to deal with a difficult coach as a young teenager, right? Dealing with a grown man, because I didn't have my father around there to help me deal with a coach that wasn't invested into his athletes. And I shared recently about, hey, I had to learn how to forgive. I had to learn to forgive my coach. And just because I had to learn to forgive, don't mean I forgot. I ain't forget about what he didn't do. Okay. Um, I forgave him because I didn't want to be stuck. I wanted to get to where I knew God had plans for me and what I needed to do. And I knew God took me through some of my experience, good and bad, so I could be here right in front of you today to have these conversations with you to help you out, help you guys, right? Help some of you all who might be Jags pursue greatness in whatever you do. And don't just be a guy and don't just be a girl. And you got to get out of being fearful and you got to take some risks, okay? And you got to, and some of you teammates and some of you coaches, you got to be straight and real with some guys. I would tell some of my guys, man, look here, you know, um, like I spoke about 7-on-7. Yeah, all that stuff is great to a certain point. It can help develop you in some ways. But when we're trying to get ready for tackle football, I gotta know that you ready to go out there and lay the wood on somebody, lay some blows and lay some licks and take some as well. And I, as a coach, got to help prepare you mentally as well as physically to have to deal with this type of sport if you're gonna play football. Same thing. I don't care if you're playing lacrosse. I done watched the lacrosse with some of these girls, man. They physical. You're gonna play hockey. You got to bring it, and you got to take some, and you got to be able to deliver some. And it takes a level of maturity to do that. And you can't get so caught up in overvaluing yourself because of your rating. Because I was stop believing all the hype, right? Because you can sell me, I don't. That's why I said some of this stuff. Some people can sometimes be overrated, or um, or we see the real come out when it's time to really. I have to go out there and play this tackle football. That's why I say I don't get too hyped up about 7-on-7. Okay, I don't get too hyped up about that. I'm gonna take it for what it, you know, for what it is and what it potentially can do. That's cool because there are some things, help you learn how to run routes, help you learn how to, with your coverage. But it ain't gonna teach you about how to hit, until you get into practices where you got to put the pads on and really do some hitting, really do some contact, some collision. Okay, 7-on-7 don't help prepare you for that. Only real football help prepare you for that part of the game. All right. So let's not get it twisted. But I don't like the fact of how they trying to kind of make it show like Dion is like the only one dealing with this type of stuff of potential or losing high end potential recruit. Some of you recruits out there, or some of you guys that might be listening to this and you're in the transfer portal, some of you guys prematurely put yourselves in that transfer portal. That's why you need somebody like Love the Game 24/7, right? And the recruiting service that I provide, some of you parents out there too, to help you understand this. Because like I said, I'm not coming from no theory, folks. I'm coming from real life. I had to walk this stuff out. Okay. And that's why, you know, I had the blessing of being able to, learn and help others to avoid having to deal with what I had to deal with. And like I said, even though I forgave my coach, I didn't forget. Heck no, I ain't forget. And I'm not supposed to forget because I wouldn't be here in front of you if I forgot about it and just let it, you know, didn't feel like it was a need. It is a need for me to be right here in front of you and talking to you guys about this because there are some healthy places and there are some unhealthy places for our young people. Okay. And we need some healthy places to be sure we're developing our young athletes because in some ways that transfer portal shouldn't be as full as it is because we got a lot of immature young athletes out there. And a lot of this stuff starts from home. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you I was perfect by no means, by no stretch. Okay. Um, Definitely not going to tell you that. Right. Um, but I know I did everything I could and laid on the line from my personal experience to help my kids make sure that they didn't, um, did my best to make sure they didn't make the mistakes like I did. And even if they did make some, hey, well, thank God that, they didn't lose me as their father in their lives like I lost mine, you know, and that they had somebody here as well as their mom to be able to help, uh, walk them through some things and continue to walk them through some things. But I'm telling you, um, this transfer portal, man, it can get ridiculous, right? There's some positives to it. Trust me, I know because I don't know if you guys had the opportunity to listen to Shannon Sharp's Club Shay Shay with Cam Newton talking about the incident at the 707, and that's what I'm saying. Stuff like that can't happen, but hey, things mistakes happen. But one thing I can say, hats off to Cam Newton on how he handles himself with this whole thing. But he shared about his experience at Florida and how it was so toxic because you had a lot of you know man, you had a lot of top athletes, and I mean, I know Lewis Murphy. He can tell you he's a young man from my hometown in St. Petersburg, Florida, that was in that environment with Cam Newton. He was a top receiver, and Cam Newton even shouted out his name and several others. But they had a lot of personalities, man, and they weren't Jags. They weren't Jags, right? They were. These guys were legit. Hey, thanks for joining. Now, um, but Cam Newton got to share his experience at Florida with Tim Tebow being there and Percy Harvin and Hernandez, with all that foolishness and stuff going on, man, there was I can only imagine, man, the personalities in that locker room. Everybody, thought very highly of themselves. But even though they thought very highly of themselves, they weren't Jags. They were every bit of whatever rating that they got, they were definitely deserving of that rating um, that those young men had on that team, that talented team that they had back then. You know, and Cam Newton shared, just about his experience um, being at Florida at that time and how he was um, not always treated fairly, but it made him stronger. It made him work harder. It made him go win and like I said, the reason why I shared that um, information about Cam Newton because he shared about how when he was going to leave Florida and transfer, and how at that time the transfer portal rules were a coach didn't have to release you and let you go, just let you go anywhere. He talked about how Urban Meyer wouldn't allow him to go to another SEC school. Had all these restrictions on what he couldn't do because coaches had a lot of power, and I think they shouldn't have had that power, and that's why we have um, the opportunity now for kids to be able to go and get in the transfer portal more. But these coaches had, I think, too much power back then in those days, right? And I understand that there's some legitimate reasons on why some young men and young ladies go in that transfer portal. I understand that very well. I lived it. I understand it. Even at the Division II level where I played, you know, we got a lot of strong personalities. Okay, um, and Urban Meyer was able to put that together and put a pretty good product on the field. And he had somebody like Tim Tebow, who was a great leader, that, as Cam Newton pointed out. But my point was in sharing that is just that transfer portal, coaches had way too much control and wouldn't allow kids to be able to go and just transfer where they want to go like they can do today. So just understand there were people who came before you, young men and young ladies today, who set the table to be able to allow you guys, who fought for it being unfair and spoke up about it, how unfair it was for coaches to be able to just recruit you at their school and then they can leave in a year or two later and take a better job. And you had no say so as an athlete to tell that coach he can't take that job. But he got everything, he got all the power in the world, or she got all the power in the world to not let you transfer somewhere that might be the right place for you. Okay. So, but as Cam shared, his workaround was he went ahead and decided, I'm going to go JUCO. I'm going to transfer and go to a junior college. Because then after I go to that junior college, Urban Meyer, no coach can tell me where I can go play football after that. And he knew he was not a Jag because he knew what kind of work he put in. He knew how committed he was. He knew how much he loved the game 24/7. He knew how mature he was when it came to putting work in, being committed, and not, like he said, his father wouldn't let him make excuses, right? Even though his father knew that he wasn't being treated right, he still wasn't going to let his son make excuses because he knew he had a young man that was very talented and had a work ethic that was going to take him places. And I feel the same way about my sons, right? About my two sons that I raised. I wouldn't allow them to make no excuses, even though I knew my son wasn't always treated fairly, fairly as well at times. More so in college, not high school, but college. But he's been in the league now going on 6 years, because that's the blessings that when you don't shy away from being great. Okay, and when I say great, it don't mean everybody's gonna know who you are. At some point, people are gonna know who you are. But when I say being great, be great where you are. Everybody in that area where you are should know who you are, because they know what your work ethic is. And so Cam Newton's father wouldn't allow him to, not work hard or give him excuses, right? Or always blame things on the coach. He just quietly behind the scenes, just like I would tell any parent. You encourage your kid, hey, work through it. You know, he came up with a workaround to go to a junior college and went and won a junior college national championship, then transferred to Auburn University and won him a national championship, and got to the Super Bowl and almost won him a Super Bowl. And so you can talk all you want about Cam. I know the Cam does a lot for kids, man. Does a lot in that 7-on-7 and helping kids get recruited in his area back home in Georgia. And sometimes people can take you for granted. Sometimes people, because you make yourself so familiar with people that they think they're on your level, and they're not on your level, and they come with foolishness. And so parents, you got to learn how to operate like that, right? You got to be sure that your young man, your young lady is getting some good information before they just go and head off and leave a school and get themselves in a transfer portal and don't really know where they're going. And like I said, even though I had to learn to forgive my coach, but I didn't forget about what he did to a lot of us, right? And so, that's why I shared him in my podcast too. Parents and even athletes, you got to hold your coaches accountable in a respectful way. You do. You have to hold them accountable. And coaches have to understand, you're allowing your child, your son or daughter, to play for that program, for them, and to be coached by them. And you have, as a parent, you have a responsibility. It ain't the coach's responsibility, but there are times as coaches we've had to step up and be like a surrogate parent. It's like that sometimes. That's, we know as coaches that's part of the job a lot of times. Okay, and if you don't want to do it, go find another job. Don't coach. They'll go do something else, right? But coaches, you can't be um, um, have an issue with a parent wanting to hold you accountable. You can have an issue with a parent not being respectful to you because you should. If they're not being respectful, that's a whole nother ball game, right? Holding you accountable is not being disrespectful. Holding you accountable is letting you know that they're taking responsibility for their child and making sure that you get a healthy young person as much and best as possible to be able to help your program, and appreciating you helping them as well by not being a problem and not bringing you any problems, but holding you accountable respectfully, and vice versa. You need to hold parents accountable as well in a respectful way as well, coaches, right? And you need to help these parents hold their athlete accountable. You need to tell them the truth, just like Deion Sanders said about the young man that they talked about last year and recently talked about possibly going in the transfer portal. And Deion brought out in a respectful way, the kids have to learn how to be where they're supposed to be. Don't come to meetings late. You'll get on the field. And as Deion pointed out, he was not on the field because he ain't talented. He wasn't on the field because you weren't keeping your part of the bargain. You signed that contract. You signed that scholarship. That's what you got to understand. You signed that scholarship, and on that scholarship, there are requirements, just like a job. That's why you deserve to get name, image, and likeness. That's why I support that, because it is like a job. You know, it's a give and take. Hey, we give you this, and you can take this, and and you give us this, and you can take this. So it's a give and take, and it needs to happen in a mature and contractual agreement. You got to understand, this is a contract. Scholarship is a contract, right? And and Icky Johnson, you all know that, the former DB from Tennessee that paralyzed or his nerves and his in one of his arms. I heard a message from him today on Twitter. Man, I just love this brother. Making no excuses, but he shared something today that I think is very important, that I see all the time too when it comes to just especially in sports, but pretty much in a lot of areas, even on jobs and things like that. So that's why I try to do my best in my job as I supervise some people, to be as open and honest as possible and have an open door of communication, and be sure I do my best in explaining to people exactly what I expect of them and what their job is, right? And Icky Johnson shared today on something, or I don't know when he shared it, but I just happened to see it being shared on Twitter. And he shared how we give the words, to our young athletes or to people, but I'm talking about our young athletes. We give words um, on what we expect our young people to be like and to act like. We can always explain it to them and give them words, but we do not show them um, enough of exactly or actually what we want them to do. We're good at telling them, right? One thing I used to do as a coach is, when I coach wide receivers and DBs, and my guys right now, if they came on here on this podcast, they'll tell you, Coach Smith would show us how to run routes. Coach Smith would show us how to get off release. I had my cleats on when I was out there a lot of times, right? Because it was like, hey, look, let me show you. Sometimes I can show. My dad used to tell me, all right, son, I can show you better than I can tell you, especially when we got in trouble with some things. Um, but that was always my mindset when I coached. Man, I can show you better than I can tell you. And I always have kept myself in some decent shape, right? And so, as Icky Johnson pointed out, we give the words, but we do not show them actually how we want things done. And that goes back, like I gave my example about my coach not being invested in us, right? You want, he would preach and teach about, oh man, you guys need to have some integrity about the program, you guys, blah, 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 right? But he didn't show any integrity by helping any of us get to school like he should have. But we always got the words, but he never showed that. And so that's what I mean by coaches, and why parents need to hold you accountable. I don't need a bunch of words. I need you. If you're going to talk integrity, you need to show me integrity as a coach. All right. You coaches out there. And parents, the same thing. If you want your coach um, um, to be the coach that you think he or she should be, then you need to show some integrity as well. Can't be a bunch of words, right? Like Ike Johnson said, we do a lot of talking. We give a lot of words, but a lot of times we don't do a good job of showing what we're talking about. I'm gonna say that again. We don't do a good job as coaches a lot of times in showing our athletes what we're talking about. So don't expect your young person to be a person of integrity and you're not showing them integrity. You're not showing them about and I'm not talking about the on field stuff. I'm talking about all the other nonsense that sometimes I know that goes on because I've been a coach and know from little league to high school, and I played college ball and seen things, and my son has played college ball, and I got a lot of young men um, that I've helped play college ball, and I've heard a lot of stuff, and I know a lot of times they aren't lying because I've been there and understand exactly. And use a lot of times as an athlete, you got to learn. Sometimes you got to learn how to fight through some stuff, or not necessarily ignore it, but don't let it get you out of your game of being great and preparing. Because you got to think about where you're trying to get to, right? Because you got to go, hey, game winning athlete, appreciate you joining with me, sister. Um, but yeah, so coaches, you got to remember that. You know, some of you all don't want to hear it, and I know the truth hurts. I know it's tight, but it's right. That's what we used to say. It's tight, but it's right. Don't, as a coach, that's how I carry myself. I don't want to, be a coach where my kids hear me saying one thing and then I'm doing another. You can't. No, you lose respect that way. You know, like I said, I've shared before. Like, I wrote this down. If you, as a coach, are comfortable, like with your former players, not um, caring and not coming or returning to their high school and want to give the high school coach a holler, right? Let me say that again. If you, as a coach, are comfortable with your former players not coming or caring or returning to their high school where they played their sport to come speak to you, give you a holler. Make sure when they're home, they got to get by the high school and holler at the coach and show their appreciation for what you've done for them, right? If you don't care about that, if that doesn't bother you, then something's wrong. Then that's a place that I don't think is healthy, right? We had a lot of great athletes that came out of my high school, Lakewood High School in St. Petersburg, Florida. It was a blessing that when the coach that I had in high school was no longer the head coach there, and my JV coach got the job because he took the program to another level as well when he was the head coach, and a lot more kids started going even to getting better offers and going to uh, college. When my JV coach took over after I graduated high school, I wish he was the head coach when I was there. But nobody back at my high school cared to go back to the high school when our former coach was the head coach, and we would come home for like breaks or summers. We went there to see the assistant coaches, Coach Kravitz, who coached with Coach Levitt at South Florida, and he also coached at NC State, and he also coached at FAMU. His first coaching job was D coordinator at FAMU. To go back, he went there and took a job there. Coach Kravitz, Rick Kravitz, took a job at FAMU to coach some of his former athletes because he was our D coordinator at Lakewood High School. But his first coaching job was at FAMU. He's a white coach, but his first and everybody loved Coach Kravitz, crazy stuff. Um, and knew and knows his stuff. Um, so and Coach Ken Drayton was another coach. Um, may he rest in peace. Coach Drayton, he was a black coach. Um, coached a lot of he coached a lot of years. Girls basketball. He was the girls JV head coach. He also coached football with us. He was also I don't know some of you all who are my age, and I ain't gonna tell my age, but he was also a truancy officer. If you Some of you all don't know what a truancy officer is, that he would be the one that would make sure kids would be skipping school or trying to get out of going to school. He would be one of those officers and be sure you got yourself in school, um, or you end up in uh, JDC somewhere, because doing some crimes, getting in trouble. So he was like one of those, but he was also a long time WNBA ref, and I think he also ref a long time too. In He was also an ACC uh, ref for girls college basketball. Coach Drayton was a man, uh, cool coach, man. You couldn't ask for a better coach than Coach Drayton and Coach Kravitz as assistant coaches, and even Coach Davis. But I didn't get to play for Davis like my brother did. But I did get to coach with Davis when I took the job at CCC before my boys, Clearwater Central Catholic. So it was great coaching with him. He was from that old school of coaches at Lakewood, but nobody was excited about going back to our old high school to speak with our coach or to give him a holler, give him a shout. He didn't care either. And you know why he didn't care? Because he knew it didn't really help any of us go to school. He understood. Nobody came to see him. And I know it kind of bothered him a little bit because we always came in to see the other coaches. And if one of them weren't there, we were out of there. We were, hey, we were off doing somewhere else. But Coach Kravitz would open up the gym and let us shoot ball in the gym. That was always a thing, because I think he was the head girls basketball coach. And Coach Drayton was the JV girls coach. Um, but we always, we shoot the ball. He would always open the gym up in the summers. So if we were doing something with football or we were doing something with basketball. And so, but like I said, if you're a head coach and you're a part of a program and you don't care about whether your players come back to see you, to visit you, to talk to you, or to still look at you as a mentor, then something's wrong with that program. And some people need to be held accountable, like some of the school boards who hire or principals who hire coaches need to be held accountable for having an unhealthy program. Our coach was able to get by with that because we were successful, because we were playing for each other, because we were playing, trying to do our best to get some sort of scholarship, because we knew we weren't getting help from him and that we had to do whatever we could to help ourselves. And so a lot of things got ignored because of the success that we had at that school, and how so many guys did go even beyond college and play pro ball. Um, but nobody was, and that's my point. So, um, so that's why we have, you know, like I said, that's why even today in college, that's why we have some issues with the transfer portal, and that's why the rules needed to change. Where coaches like Cam Newton said, where Urban Meyer tried, did everything and he could. He was well within the rules. So I'm not gonna make it seem like tell you, even though I didn't think it was right and it was wrong what Urban Meyer did, he was well within the NCAA rules to block Cam Newton from going to any other SEC school that he wanted, and he did it. And so, like I said, because Cam knew I had to take this other track to the junior college, so that way it took the control out of Urban Meyer's hands from preventing him from going to wherever he wanted to go. So that's how he was able to get around that. But thankfully, like I said, those rules no longer apply. Um, and that's why some coaches needed to have that power taken from them, because sometimes there's some coaches that are not out for your best benefit. Let's just be honest. They aren't. And you got to just deal with it, right? You got to figure out a way, right? There's a way. You just got to figure it out. And so I know there's some very good reasons of why there's some kids in the transfer portal, but I also know there are some reasons that are not so good for why they're in the transfer portal. And some of it has to do with that athlete just being a guy or just being a girl, just being mediocre, you being a jag, you know, and some of you, like I said, you get this ratings and all this other stuff, and sometimes you can get too much hype, right? You get too prideful, and just think you can just go out there and run around and play and not have to put work in. That'll last for a little bit. I'm not gonna say you can't do it at all. Um, of course, yeah, you're young. You'll be able to do some things like that sometimes. But if you want to be great, as I said before, maturity. Are you consistent in showing up? Immaturity is you consistent in not showing up, not doing what you're supposed to do. Just the opposite, right? And so in some families, you got to learn how to hold your young man or young lady accountable and tell them the truth. And I know there's a lot of mamas and daddies out there that have, but I also know there's some out there that aren't. And we got to cut that out. We got to be honest. We got to help our young people be successful and not have to learn things the hard way. There are some things that can be avoided, right, from you having to learn something. You can learn by listening to what I'm saying right now, listening to this podcast, taking the advice so you can avoid some pain, some frustration. Now, if you don't want to listen, by all means, but there's some things you don't have to experience. Let's just be honest. Okay. There's some things, a lot of things that we don't have to experience. And I'm thankful there's some things I didn't experience. I'm thankful for some things I did from being a little hard headed sometimes. Um, and thank God, by the grace of God, He didn't allow me to be taken out because there's some things I know. Like, boy, look here. I know a lot of us can sit here and look and say, and you listen to this, whether you listen to it live or whether you listening to it, um, the recording. That man, boy, if it wasn't for the grace of God, I know I might have been out of here. I might have been gone. Okay. And so just trying to be sure I come with you honestly and real and upfront, telling you the truth. Um, so, and like I said, the media trying to make, Dion look bad, like he's the only one dealing with, you know, top level kids wanting to transfer. Man, that's an everyday occurrence for many kids at a lot of schools. And when you look at the statistics, Dion probably not even at the top. And even if he is, there's a lot of schools. Like I said, Nebraska, uh, Florida State. You name some of the big schools. They're all dealing with this for whatever reason, right? Some of it's not coaching. Some of it's just a kid realize, like I said, and it's sad that it's true, but this is the nature of the business, and we got to toughen our kids up now, like I said, at a young age. So when they go through something, it's not a surprise to them, and they figure out how to work through it, right? Because my son had to deal with, when he moved from being a quarterback to a receiver. I'm not going to get into all that, but hey, it worked out. But, he made no excuses. He kept his head down and continued to work hard and to show himself, his skill level. And I know he was a 4-star, 5-star kid. He could play any position, but I knew quarterback was something that he was best at. Still know that today. But I also knew that if he wanted to play another position like a cornerback or a receiver, he could still play it at a top level. I never doubted that watching him grow up. And same thing with my youngest son. If he wanted to put the work in to play baseball, I knew that boy um, could have did just like his older brother, right? But he had plans that he worked hard in some other things and got blessed, and that's good. So so whatever you're doing, but since we're talking about trying to get these scholarships, trying to get recruited, I have a young man right now um, that that I'm working with and been reaching out, and I know he can play the next level. Right? It's just frustrating that his coach had never talked to him about going to the football camps until before now, going into his senior year. You know, I would think right now that if he did, he would have some offers by now with his measurables and watching his huddle. I don't doubt it one bit that people just don't know who he is. And a lot of you kids need to learn how to go about this. And then even when you get to camps, how you need to make sure how you need to conduct yourselves and how you need to do some things, how you need to operate, how you need to not be mediocre, how you need to prepare yourself before you go to these camps. So that's why I love the game 24/7. Um, I think it is very vital and crucial in helping a lot of you young athletes out there and parents learn how you need to conduct yourselves with some things at the high school and at the college level. Okay, and even now, even at the pro level, but how all this stuff, um, like I said, there's some things you can learn without having to deal with going through some of the pain, frustration. But if you want to go through it, by all means. But I know what I provide and what I can offer and help coach, mentor. Um, a lot of things can be avoided, and you'll still get the opportunity to get you some scholarship offers, multiple scholarship offers. That's my goal, to help you get multiple scholarship offers at whatever level it is that's recruiting you. And in order to do that, you got to get to some camps to find out. I don't think any high school coach should be trying to tell you that you're not this level or that level. Let the college coaches who um, see you at camp and come watch you decide that for you. All right, you go to some of these camps at the Division 1, and you gotta have a resume, man. You gotta build a resume, young lady, of people seeing you and exposing yourself to them so they can see your development, your growth over time. You don't want it to just be this one time or a couple of times, right? So um, you gotta be sure that you get yourself exposed to these coaches and let them see your development. Let them see how you improved every year after going to their camp and working hard and putting in work, um, and showing that, hey, because that's what it's about. That's what they're looking for. Trust me, these coaches won't want to keep their job, and they're looking to turn over every stone. They know they don't. There's kids out there that they don't know of that probably can help their program, and if they get somebody to help show you how to get there and get yourself exposed to them, they're going to recruit you. But it's going to take work, right? And everybody can't go Division 1. Everybody can't go FCS. Everybody can't go Division 2. But there are enough schools out there, those different levels, to where you could potentially get yourself a scholarship if you're not just a Jag. Okay, uh, if you're not just a guy, if you're not just a girl. Because we got a lot of people who are just a guy, who are just a girl, and that's cool because maybe they're not looking to really do too much in their sport. And that's fine for those who just enjoy it. But for those who love the game 24/7, who really know they got the talent and ability to play at the next level, at whatever level that is, and you want to get a scholarship to um, help your family out, take that financial burden off your mom and dad, and you just love the game and you want to be great at it. You don't want to just be good at it. You want to be great. Then those are the ones I want to talk to. Those athletes and parents. Let's get it. Well, I appreciate you guys joining me this evening. I hope you enjoyed um, the conversation. I don't know if there was any questions that I missed, because, like I said, you can always ask questions. Hey, Salama. Yep. I appreciate you joining me, sister. I hope all is well. I see you on Facebook and on IG. Appreciate you joining me as always. And but like I said, got to be consistent, and I'm gonna be consistent. And so be sure, like I said, you subscribe to me on YouTube. Right? Let's get this viewership rolling and moving in the right direction. Let's get some people some help. Let's be sure we get our young people on the right path. Right? I know we got that young man from Kansas City Chiefs that just turned himself in. You know, I mean, hey, he's being a normal kid that made a bad decision, and thank God that nobody got killed or anything. Um, but it was a stupid thing to do. He's not stupid because he's a football player. Okay, let's cut that crap out. My wife's a nurse, and she tells me all the time that part of your brain still is developing. And we got a lot of young men and young ladies that come into a lot of money, whether they're in a career in something else, because we got people that you don't even hear about that are accountants or on Wall Street or whatever it is. You don't hear about them, and they've done some of the same things, right? Because they're young and they got a lot of success and money and different things, and you got to have some healthy people around them that's going to hold them accountable and tell them the truth to help avoid some of this, right? He's not stupid because he's a football player, because he's a basketball player, this or that kind of stuff that people try to always want to connect things or whatever. No, it's because he's a young man, just like any other young man that you don't even know about it, has done some of these same things. I believe even Coach He plays for the Chiefs, and I believe Andy Reid. I think his son had one of his sons um, had a situation like this. Um, doesn't mean he's a bad person. Things happen. They're young. They're gonna make mistakes. But like I said, there's some things we can avoid the pain. I'm just thankful that the young man didn't um, Rashay or whatever, however pronounce his name. I can't think of it right offhand, but he's a very good athlete. Seemed to be a very good young man as well. When I've seen him on interviews, he made a mistake, and I just hope and pray that he gets through it and learns from it, and that the people around him hold him accountable and support him so he can work through it and get through it and continue his career and being successful. That's what it's about. Um, Not sitting here beating him up about it. Yeah, he made a dumb mistake. He did something that he shouldn't have been doing. Okay, but like I said, my wife would tell me all the time she wasn't surprised when she hears stuff because she asked, "Well, how old was the guy? Was he an older ball player? Was he young?" She's like, "Oh, if he's young, it's more than likely that part of his brain is still developing that teaches about reasoning and making certain decisions where we know I shouldn't be doing that, even though we know we shouldn't do certain things. We know we did some things, and if we had social media back then, we'd be in a whole heck of a heap of trouble. So let's not um, um, do that to the young man or young lady about things. But I appreciate you guys joining me. Let's make sure that you get with Love the Game 24/7 so we can help. Like I said, you're a young person. Excel and not just be a jag, just a guy or just a girl. All right. Let's make them great. Right. Let's pursue greatness. Let's be mature and be consistent in showing up in integrity, doing things right when you don't even think people are watching you. Right. That's what we want to do. So have a great evening. And until next time, I'll see you guys Saturday. Um, Remember now, next week, I'm going to be at the NFL draft with my alma mater, Tiffin University. I'm going to be in Detroit. I'm excited about volunteering to help raise money for our sports management program at Tiffin University, where I got my MBA in sports management. So I'm going to be out there next week for the NFL draft. So that's going to be exciting. And I'll do post some pictures or videos or even go live wherever I can. They even talked about there'll be opportunities for us to do that. But I'm going to have some security clearance because I'm going to be on the red carpet area. So there's some things we'll be allowed to do and not allowed to do because of uh, people that are going to be around, very important people, right? So I just wanted to share that again. So I'm looking forward to that, and I'll be sharing more about that um, as I, get out there next week to Detroit. So thanks for joining me. Blessings, everybody, and thank you for joining and sharing Love the Game 24/7 podcast. And be sure I put out a lot of shorts, but go watch. I always give the link to watch the whole video. So be sure you watch the whole video, guys. All right. Watch the whole video in full. Get the full message on the different topics about this athletic recruiting for your young athlete. Appreciate it. Blessings.